Hi, I'm Dr. Cole Messersmith, practicing at Ob-Gyn Associates of Advantia at our Silver Spring and Beltsville locations. And I wanted to talk a little bit about long-acting reversible contraceptives, often abbreviated as LARCs. If you're anything like me, I think about contraception as getting the right pair of shoes because I'm very particular about what pair of shoes I get. I want something that's the right fit for me and it's gonna be very different than everybody else. And that's exactly what I tell all women about birth control. There's no one size fits all. And with the thousands of options that are out there, I encourage every woman who's thinking about initiating a contraceptive to meet with their OBGYN and talk about what's gonna be the best fit for them. One class of contraceptives that I like to highlight to women is the long-acting reversible contraceptives, or LARCs. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's a form of birth control that's long-acting on the scale of years, and when removed, immediately reversible, meaning you have no delayed return to fertility. This form of birth control is highly effective in the realm of a failure rate of less than 1% after 5 years of use, meaning that less than 1% of women who are using a LARC are going to have an unintended pregnancy in 5 years. LARCs come in two different forms. One group called intrauterine devices, or IUDs, come in a few different brand names you may have heard of, such as Mirena, Liletta, Kylena, or Skyla, as well as the Paragard. The other is an implantable subdermal device that goes under the skin of the arm called the Nexplanon. These all range in use in the realm of 3 to 8 years, depending on the device you use. And almost all of them utilize a form of synthetic hormone called a progestin to inhibit fertilization, meaning preventing the egg and sperm from meeting to form an embryo. One of the IUDs, called the Paragard, is also non-hormonal, using copper instead of a hormone to achieve that same goal. These are easily inserted in the office by a trained provider, such as your OBGYN, and takes a matter of minutes to be placed. And then when their time has expired or you desire pregnancy or to change contraceptive options, they likewise are removed in the office in a matter of seconds or minutes as well. That's what LARCs are, but how do women actually like them in the real world? So there's actually a really interesting study where we looked at women just like all of you to say, hey, how do people actually like these in real use? There was a study done in St. Louis where over 9,000 women were offered birth control, any birth control that they wanted at their choice with no cost to them. They were followed for several years and were allowed to switch options if they weren't satisfied with what they used. And at the end of the day, the researchers saw how well did the birth control work, how many failure rates there were in unintended pregnancies, and how satisfied were women with the actual birth control that they used. They found that ultimately two-thirds of the women, so two-thirds of over 9,000 women, chose to use a LARC method, meaning an IUD or an Nexplanon, and these women were least likely to have an unintended pregnancy. Less than 1% of those women had an unintended pregnancy. And at the end of the day, these women were the most satisfied with their use. Over 80% of these women wanted to keep the LARC method that they had, and the majority of women who had not chosen a LARC actually switched to an IUD or an Nexplanon during the phase of that study. So even though it's a little boring to talk about research, this was a study that took real women in a major city in the US, St. Louis, and showed that not only does a LARC birth control method work really well, but it's also something that women really liked and were really satisfied with use. I recommend meeting with your OBGYN to talk about any contraceptive questions you have, and I'm certainly happy to talk about LARCs if anyone's ever interested.